Hi, boys and girls, it's Mr. Grendel. Welcome back to day 2 of our review and routines. Today, we're going to take a look at a short story about kindness and work on our short O vowel sound. And let me go ahead and share our screen so that you can see what we're going to be working on. Almost there. Takes a second. There we go. All right, so let me go back a couple slides. Oh. And here we are. So remember, we're going to be using Google Classroom quite a bit to find your assignments, and Clever to find benchmark assignments, read accelerated reader work, and other cool like code.com. Some of our assignments might be in Seesaw, but we'll check in our Google Classroom to find them. And later in the year, we're going to be using Pear Deck. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to work on today. So here we have our expectations for Zoom. Remember, we want to have our microphone muted. It will look like this when it's turned off. And it's important when it's not your turn to talk to have it muted. Otherwise, everybody can hear every little thing that's going on around you. And it's really hard to hear what your teacher is telling you. But if you do want to share something, you can raise your hand. There's also the reaction, raise your hand. And a third way that you can do is go to the bottom of your screen and have mom and dad help you find the word chat, type in a period and enter it. Now, later in the year, you might be able to type in a whole question. But for right now, if you just put a little period, a dot in there, mom and dad can show you how to find the period on the keyboard. That will signal to your teacher that you have something you want to say or share. So that's a third way for you to participate. And then you want to make sure that you wait till you're called on to share your thoughts or your questions. We use appropriate language. We use complete sentences when we're in school and kind words. We speak in whole sentences, complete thoughts, not 1 or 2 words. And when you come to school, you need to be responsible. Bring all the materials you need. Today, for this part of the class, you just need to bring in your computer and your Zoom and your brain. Love to see your smile too. Being responsible is completing all your work on time as well and focusing on the teacher while the teacher is talking. Super important to be on time. We start our meetings at 9 o'clock every day. So we want you to be here on time so you don't lose out. And then find a quiet place to work, like working from home. That's what we're all doing now. And find a table if you have one, or a chair, comfortable chair to sit in. And that there's not a lot of noises going on around you to distract you. And when it's a good time to eat? During our break times. We all get hungry from time to time. Your teacher's going to give you breaks. And when you do, that's a good time to go to the restroom, get a glass of water, or get something to eat, or just stand up and move a bit. Please remember, though, when you are eating, don't eat or drink by your computer, because if it falls on the computer, that could really damage it, and we don't want that. So let's take a look at today. We're going to talk about being respectful. Then we're also going to listen to a story called Kindness is Cooler, Mrs. Ruler. I want you to listen for a couple things. Find out how the kids are being kind. Find out, see if you can hear some rhyming words, words that have the same ending sound, like cooler, Mrs. Ruler. Has the lur sound, the rhyming sound, and see if you can hear some math going on in there and help them out when they're doing their math. I bet you can. And then we're going to work on some short O vowel words. We're going to blend those and write a journal about something you had to do, something you have a hard time doing. So let's go ahead and talk about being respectful. I see this word respect. What does that mean? You can pause the video and share out what respect means. I bet you came up with some good ideas, but here's some other ways to, if they didn't mention them, to be respectful. Listen, that means looking at the person who's talking, having your hands in your lap, and facing forward, nodding your head sometimes so they know that you're listening. Be nice, that's like being kind, helpful, sharing, and caring. Be quiet when needed. That's like having our mute button on in our Zoom class so that we can be respectful and not interfere with anybody's learning. Take turns and raise your hands and touch only your things unless you ask first and have permission. Those are some ways, but not all the ways in the world to be respectful. So important. But now let's go ahead and take a listen to this Kindness is Cooler Mrs. Ruler story. I think you'll enjoy it.
It was cold, it was rainy, and Mrs.
Whoopsie, let me start it back up.
Ruler's class hadn't been outside all week. The students were getting jumpy and grumpy. Anaya and Tawana whispered during story time. David pulled Rockwellita's ponytail, and Rockwellita stole his hat. Then, David grabbed Connor's hat and threw it in the hall.
That's enough. Too rough.
The bell rang. It was time for recess. As the kids left, Mrs. Ruler kept Anaya, Tawana, Connor, Rockwellita, and David behind.
Sit down. Don't frown. Now tell me, why do you think I've kept you in from recess?
We were acting up.
That's right. You were being mean to one another, and you acted as if it's cool to be mean. But it's not. What is a cooler way to act?
Kindness is cooler, Mrs. Ruler.
Bravo! A slice of nice makes a mile of smile. You 5 need to practice being kind. During the next few days, I want you to perform 5 acts of kindness for your families. Then, in show and tell, you can share what you did with the rest of the class.
David scowled.
What if we don't feel like being kind?
Mrs. Ruler smiled.
Good deeds fill needs. Count on me. You'll see.
The next day, Anaya and Tawana couldn't wait for show and tell. When it was their turn, they ran to the front of the class.
We did 10 acts of kindness last night. Before dinner, I made special placements.
I set the table.
I drew hearts on the napkins to show Mom we love her.
I grated the cheese for the macaroni.
I helped make the salad.
After dinner, we carried the dishes to the sink.
And I loaded the dishwasher.
While I took out the garbage.
Then I sponged off the table.
And I straightened up the chairs. Mom told us how much she liked our homework. It put her in such a good mood that we want to do more nice things for her.
Bravo! 10 acts of kindness will lead to more. Give me the chalk and I'll keep score.
She wrote the twins' deeds on the blackboard. When she was finished, she looked at David.
What about you? Did you practice too?
No, I just couldn't get into it.
Oh my, please try. Kindness is cooler.
After school, Rockwellita invited Connor over for a play date. She had a new dog and a big family, so there were lots of ways Rockwellita and Connor could practice being kind. In show and tell, the next day, they shared kindness with the class.
We took Puddles for a walk, and we threw him a ball.
I filled his Watto dish.
And I gave him some puppy chow.
Puppy chow? Wow!
Then we built a block tower with my little brother and gave Abuelo and Abuelita their canes before they took a walk.
We also helped Rockwellita's dad carry in the groceries from the car.
And I gave my baby sister her bottle.
I count 8, and 8 is great.
That's not all. When I got home, I took in the mail. I also carried the clean laundry upstairs.
Bravo! Altogether, you did 10. And how much do the twins' 10 acts and your 10 make?
20!
20 is plenty. But how about you, David? What did you do?
Too few for you. I told my brother I liked his haircut. Then I let him use my comb. That's all I could think of.
Well, that's a good start. Keep doing your part.
Then Lauren raised her hand and said, I'd like to try some acts of kindness when I get home today, too.
Okay, hooray! Let's turn this into a class project. For the rest of the week, I'd like you to bring in some acts of kindness you've done at home. I'll write your acts on paper hearts and put them on the bulletin board, and I'll also add the ones from the blackboard.
Put away clothes, vacuumed living room rug, shelved books, let my big brother use my computer, told Dad I liked his shirt, got sister a Band-Aid when she skinned her knee, cleaned my room, fed goldfish, emptied waste baskets, watered houseplants, put groceries away, drew pictures with my little sister, told my sister that she has nice teeth.
We have so many, we'll need another wall. Let's count.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The kids counted until they reached 35.
Bravo! Now let's try skip counting by fives.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35.
That's right. You're bright. We should keep going with this project. Now let's try some acts of kindness at school. I'll add those to the wall too. Don't forget, a slice of nice makes a mile of smile.
As Mrs. Ruler kept cutting out more hearts, Connor and Pablo tried some school kindness too. They invited David to sit with them at lunch, but when they finished their sandwiches, David took one of Connor's cookies.
Hey, quit it.
He grabbed David's lunch bag and threw it over his head.
Stop. Don't you remember what Mrs. Ruler said? Good deeds fill needs. David, don't grab, and Connor used to have 4 cookies. Why don't you share them with David and me?
Oops. You're right. For a moment, I forgot about being kind. I agree. Here are 3. Yum. I'm going to ask my babysitter to help me make cookies when I get home.
And then you can bring them to school.
And share them with the whole class. And Miss Ruler will congratulate me for being extra kind. But I still won't have done as many acts of kindness as everyone else.
So think of other things to catch up.
David didn't have to think for too long. That afternoon, when Caitlin was cleaning the gerbil's cage, the gerbils got loose. One even jumped to the window ledge. Mrs. Ruler hopped on a chair.
Eek! Squeak!
Everyone ran for cover. Everyone but David. He chased the gerbils. He scooped them up one by one, then he set them back where they belonged.
Hooray for David!
Your act of kindness was the best. Now go on home and do the rest.
She jumped off the chair and added the acts of kindness from that week to the wall. Mrs. Ruler and the class counted up all the hearts. By now, the class had done 70 acts of kindness.
That's great. But wait, there's more in store. Let's keep going and spread some kindness beyond school. There are lots of kind acts you can do in the community.
But we're just little kids. How can we do stuff outside our house and school?
I'll ask your parents to work with you on community kindness, and I'll help too. All it takes is one simple act, one act of kindness that will make the world a better place. If you act from your heart and do your part, we'll end up with 100 acts of kindness all together.
Now the class was really excited, and David was more excited than anyone. A few weeks later, the kids shared their acts of community kindness. Mrs. Ruler added more hearts to the wall. Again, the class counted 1, 2, 3 until they got to 99.
Oh no. Uh-oh. We still need one more.
Then she paused and thought for a moment.
I know. Let's have a class party. We'll decorate and celebrate.
100 acts of kindness!
Okay. Hooray!
Wasn't that a good story? And actually, let me scoot back a little bit because I wanted to go over something that we mentioned. Look, here's the author's name. Remember, the author is the person who writes the story, and the illustrator is the person who does the drawings and the colors them in. And that was such a cool story. Did you hear any rhyming words in there? I heard a bunch of them. Maybe you can share with your class the ones you heard. Did you notice any math going on? What was the math that was happening in this story? Share that too. And finally, they gave so many examples of being kind. Can you think of ways that you can be kind? I have a challenge for you for today. Maybe you can try and find at least 3 ways to be kind at home. Maybe you can volunteer to set the table for dinner, or maybe you can give your mom a big hug or dad a big hug. Maybe you can help clean up after a meal or help cook. There's so many different ways to be kind, and it helps everybody feel good when we're kind to each other. What a great story. Now let's take a look at our next slide. Remember yesterday we started reading the first half of the story called Postcard Clues. Here's our title, and down there was the author's name. So we're going to do a pretty quick review of what the key details that were annotated in the first part of the story. Remember, when we annotate, we sometimes use a highlighter if we have permission to use one, or you're going to be using a pencil when it's your turn to annotate when we're talking about the government and law. And we had a question asked, where was Sarah? So I'm going to look at some text features. I looked first at the postcard, and I saw one clue was the west coast of the United States, the second longest suspension bridge in the country, and over San Francisco Bay. And also the last clue here in the postcard was a view of the Pacific Ocean. I also see a photograph. That's a text feature. A photograph means it's real, it's nonfiction. This bridge really does exist. And down here was a table, and the title of our table was 5 Longest Suspension Bridges in the United States. And remember back up here in this clue, second longest suspension bridge? Well, if I look at my table, this is the second longest one, the Golden Gate Bridge, 4,200 feet long. I bet some of you have probably been there, maybe even gone across the bridge. It's a really big bridge. But we solved that mystery yesterday by looking at the key details in the text to help us figure out the answer. Do you remember the next place that Sarah visited? It had big mountains, another photograph text feature, and there's a table here. And there's a graph. This is a pictograph because it's got the pictures here of mountains, and underneath are the names of the mountains. And over on this side tells how tall the mountains are. We looked at this one and figured out Mount McKinley was the tallest mountain in the United States, according to this graph. And that gave us a big clue, along with it being in Alaska, and the mountain's called Denali, and it has another name too, which we learned was Mount McKinley. That's how we solved that mystery. Great job looking at our tables and annotating in the text. Now, let's take a look at the next place that she visited. This was a very cool place. I'd love to go here someday. Do you remember the key details in the postcard? Is a place called Down Under, or Australia. It has lots of fish and plants, and more than 1,000 miles off the northeast coast of Australia. And down here was what we call a compass rose. See the N? That stands for north. It's the direction. Everything on this map going this way is north. East, the E is going this way. S is south, so going down on the map. And the W is west, goes this way. So if I want to find something that's northeast on the map, I would go somewhere between the north and the east. And it was this clue, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. It's how we were able to figure out, using our compass rose on our text feature, the map. Looked at our title of our map, it was Australia, our compass rose, and then went northeast on it to find the name of the place she visited, the Great Barrier Reef. Awesome. And then today we're going to look at another place that she's visiting. Look at this text feature, this photograph. It looks like a long bridge, maybe. I'm not sure. I hope I find out when I read, but here she is on it. And the question we need to look again is search for clues in this section. Wow, I see another table here, another text feature. I bet that's going to help me. And let's see what the postcard she writes to Sam. There's the greeting, Dear Sam, we're in another country. It has the largest population in the world. Let me move this up. Today, we're visiting the Great Wall. Ooh, I wonder if this is the Great Wall she's at. It's very old. People started building it around 2,700 years ago. Where are we? Let's look for our clues. And then that was the body of her postcard and the closing, your friend, Sarah. Notice the greeting and the closing start with a capital letter and they both end with a comma. They have a comma and the name of the person underneath it to under the greeting. And then we look at our table and we see, oh, hey, there it had the largest population. That was a clue. And let's see if we can, oh, here's some, what I went ahead and annotated. It's a country, it's the largest population in the world. It had a Great Wall and very old, and the wall was built over 7,200 years ago. So I'm gonna look at this table. Here's my title, 5 most populated countries. Populated means number of people. And at the very top with the biggest number is this country called China. China has over 1,285,000,000 people. That's really a lot of people. And then the next biggest country is called India with 1,025,100,000 people. And the third is United States of America, where we live with 285,900,000. Now I know that there's more. This postcard must have been written a little while ago because we have like 330 million now, but it's still the third largest. And then another place called Indonesia with 214,800,000 and Brazil with 172,600,000. So the question, we want to find which has the largest population. And if I go to my graph, I can see the country with the largest population is China. There it is. Way to go, Sarah's in China. Now, we're going to do an activity. I'm going to do this one today, but I want you to pay close attention because tomorrow you're going to help me do the second half of the book. And we're going to talk about sequence. Sequence is putting things in order. I have 4 lines here for the 4 different places that Sarah visited. And so a place that you visit is called a destination. It's a place that people make a special trip to visit. Do you remember the 4 places that she visited? What was the first one? It was San Francisco, the Golden Gate. What was the one she visited next? Did you say, oh, it's got a state and a flag. Did you say Alaska? If you did, you were right. Where was the 3rd place that she went to? I bet you remembered. It had some fish in it. And it was in Australia, the Great Barrier Reef of Australia. And the last place we read about today was in China with the wall. The Great Wall had the biggest population. Now that we've put them in order, I'm going to go back and pull out 2 or 3 facts for each of these areas to type in. Now, I've already done this, so I'm going to show you how I did it. Tomorrow, we're going to work together on the next places that she visits and fill in the facts and put first them in order and then fill in the facts of where she goes to. So let's take a look back at some of the facts. She went to the Golden Gate Bridge in California for the first place. And some of the facts we found were that's in San Francisco, California. It's the 2nd longest suspension bridge in the country. And another fact was it is over the San Francisco Bay and the Pacific Ocean. Now I'm going to grab 2 or 3 of these facts to put on our chart in a minute, but let's take a look at the next place. she visited. Oh, and it's also 4,200 feet high. Forgot that one, but that's a good fact. That's a cool one. The next place she went to in Alaska, let's see what were some important facts that we annotated and pulled out from our tables. It's the highest mountain in the United States. It's in Alaska. It's called Denali in Alaska. And it's also called Mount McKinley. It's 20,320 feet tall. We found that fact down here. Those are all very cool facts about that area. And the facts about Australia, it's called Down Under. It's more than 1,000 miles of coral off the northeast coast. And it's a Great Barrier Reef. Now keep all these facts in mind and see how I'm going to use them in a minute. And the last place was China, was where she visited. It's in another country with the world's largest population and has the Great Wall, very old, and people started building it 2,700 years ago, and it was in China. Now I'm going to pull 2 or 3 facts from each of these 4 postcard places that she went to, and I typed them in down here. And that should be long, not lone. I'll have to go back and fix that. So I put in San Francisco, 4,200 feet long, highest mountain in the United States, and called Mount McKinley, and 1,000 miles long, northeast of Australia, and it started building 2,700 years ago. Has the most people, the largest population. So what I did was I put the places she visited in order and put the names up here. And then I pulled out some facts from each of the places to help me remember about the cool places that Sarah got to visit. Tomorrow, it's gonna be your turn. You're gonna help me remember the next places she goes to and help me I'll put the illustration in there, and then we'll find some facts that are cool about those places too. Boy, I'd love to travel like she did someday. Now we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to work on our phonics, the short O vowel sound. Thanks for listening, boys and girls. Good job, and you keep up the good work. We'll see you in a few minutes after your break time.